Yo, what's going on? It's Greg Santos and welcome to Outlier Circle. If this is your first time joining me here today, I take isolated outliers who lack a powerful network of mentors and peers, and I help you build a world-class network. If that sounds like you, if that sounds like something that you want, go ahead and hit that subscribe button below. Also hit that bell because your boy's gonna be dropping some super hot fire on that ass, baby. And we're gonna grow together, we're gonna get better together, and we're gonna make this shit happen. We're gonna get as much as we possibly can out of this life. Does that sound amazing? All right, so I'm gonna take a little different route today. I'm gonna talk about productivity, right? I think productivity and connecting with people are very simultaneous. Like people who are very successful, they are people who get shit done, right? These people have discipline. They push through their short-term emotions and they get stuff done whether they feel like it or not, right? Now, I wanna talk about something that's very important. Now, there's this book, it's called Deep Work by Cal Newport. This book has really changed the way that I look at work. Now, in this book, Cal Newport, he talks about you can get a lot more work done in a shorter amount of time. As a matter of fact, you can get a lot done with just 4 hours a day of work, more than you can possibly get in 8 hours a day of work, right? So what do most people live in? What kind of mode do they live in when they're getting work done, right? So think about someone who's on an 8-hour shift. Now, in that 8-hour shift, do you think that person is working that full 8 hours? Are they really putting all of their, energy and effort and focus into that job? Likely not. And today's culture, right? Or not today's culture, but in today's day and age, a lot of people, especially like by the time this is being filmed, we got COVID, we have a pandemic going on, and people are likely, working from home and probably checking their Instagram more than usual, probably browsing on Facebook more than usual. They know that they can get a certain amount of work done within, maybe just an hour of actual work spread out through 8 hours and just kill time. You can do that. But here's the thing, right? So we have like, there's this concept, I forget what it's called. It's slipping my tongue right now, but it's basically that work fills up to the amount of time that you give it. Work will fill up to the amount of time you give it. So for example, let's say that you have a specific task you gotta get done for the day. Let's say you're a salesperson and you have to make 50 calls in a day and you have 8 hours to make those calls. Well, chances are you're gonna hit those 50 dials, probably a little bit before your shift ends, maybe an hour before your shift ends, maybe 2 hours before your shift ends. But the reality is you could have gotten those 50 calls done probably within the first hour or two that you were at work. Depending on how many people answer the phone, maybe first 3 hours. And let's say if I say, yeah, you have 50 calls you have to make a day, but you only have 3 hours to make them. Well, work is gonna fill up to the amount of time that you give it. Does that make sense? So you give yourself 3 hours, you're gonna make those 50 dials in 3 hours. You give yourself 8 hours, you're gonna make those 50 dials in 8 hours, okay? So that's just human nature. We tend to procrastinate on things. We've been doing that since we were kids, when we were in school, and it's still the same thing while we're adults. Now, what can we do to help us get more work done in a shorter period of time? So what I do myself, and I'm gonna talk about what my business partner does because she's pretty crazy. I basically followed what Cal Newport talks about in his book, Deep Work, where he says you only need 4 hours of like deep, concentrated work a day, where your focus and energy is 100% dedicated to the task at hand. As a matter of fact, you can probably get more done in 4 hours of work in one day than someone can probably get done in 2 days working 8 hours, right? And like the average person who's constantly checking email, constantly checking social media, bouncing back from texts, and then deciding to work. And then like their mind is constantly just bouncing from one thing to another. And if you just took all of your mental resources and directed it into one direction, you can definitely get a lot accomplished from just eliminating everything else. So what I do is I've been doing what's called a Pomodoro technique. Now, if you don't know what Pomodoro is, it's this productivity hack where you work in 30-minute blocks, right? So let's say you're gonna do one Pomodoro. One Pomodoro would be 25 minutes of work where you're not looking at your phone, you're not checking your email. It's, I'm just gonna work on this and this is it, and that's all I'm going to do, right? You're not gonna talk to your friends, you're not gonna talk to your family, you're not gonna check your texts. So let's say you're a salesperson and you're making dials, right? That 25 minutes, you're doing nothing. Someone doesn't answer, you may or may not leave a voicemail. All right, right back to it. Boom, right back to it. And then you're just like, bam, 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 bam. 25 minutes straight, just that's all you're doing, and that's it, right? And then you got to give your brain a break, right? So we have different modes as well, right, in our brain. So when we're doing our deep work, that's called our task positive mode, where we're, it requires all of our mental resources. We're putting everything we possibly can into this task. And then we have what's called task negative mode. Now, task negative, it sounds bad, but task negative is actually really beneficial. Task negative is what our brain goes to when we are in nature. Task negative is where our brain goes when we are in the shower. Task negative is where we go when we're meditating, right? So that's where our best ideas come from. That's where we are able to really sit back and then reflect and zoom out for a little bit, right? Now, task negative doesn't mean going and checking another screen and then mindlessly checking up on your news feed. It's completely disengaging from everything and allowing yourself to breathe, relax, give your brain a break. And then once that 5-minute break is up in task negative mode, you go back to work, right? So one Pomodoro will be 25 minutes of deep concentrated work, followed by 5 minutes of rest. That's 30 minutes time. That's one Pomodoro, okay? Now, I decided to do 8 Pomodoros a day. So 8 Pomodoros equals 4 hours of deep work. And I get so much done. And you'd actually be surprised, like, it can be, challenging to even get that done because not all the time you feel ready to just make stuff happen. Sometimes your brain isn't working properly. Maybe you're underslept, or maybe you ate something unhealthy, or maybe there's some stress that's going on in your life, or whatever is going on. It can be hard to just forget everything and plow through all that and just boom, focus at the task at hand. So I find that 8 hours of 8 Pomodoros a day of 4 hours of deep work is manageable because I can still do that even on those days where it's really rough, it's really challenging for me to get things done. And if you do 8 Pomodoros a day for a year and you're just super concentrated at the task that you do, man, you'll get so much more done. Instead of saying, I work 8 hours, 10 hours a day. Well, what are you doing with those 8 hours and 10 hours? Are you checking Instagram stories and screenshotting and putting on your Instagram story and counting that as work? Like, are you counting going to the gym? Does that count as work? Or maybe like working out? Like what counts as work? If I were to take a camera and film you, right? Let's do those old school cameras. If I were to take a camera and film you, and for your entire day, and we edited all the bullshit out, right? Where you're checking your social media, you're checking your Instagram, you're going to the bathroom, you eat, you read, whatever it is. How much of that time, if we edit all that out, how long would the clip be if you actually sitting down and working and being on a specific task at hand? Think about that. It's probably way less than you think, right? Now, for 8 Pomodoros it's manageable. And the thing is, when we are going throughout our days, we want to make sure that we can do something that we can do consistently over a long period of time. If you read Darren Hardy's book, The Compound Effect, he talks about success doesn't come from doing huge ass bursts of action, every now and then. See, the challenge is a lot of people that get into something like where they get a huge burst of motivation and they start taking action. And what do? They overdo it. And I'm not just saying like I'm exempt from this. I've definitely done this plenty of times. Even knowing this concept, I still do this. Where we get motivated, we get this burst of energy, we hear this motivational talk, or we're excited for something, and we overshoot ourselves, right? So for example, what would be an example of this? Maybe I'm like, I'm ready for a change. All right, from now on, I'm doing 12 Pomodoros a day. First day, you crush it. You actually do the 12 Pomodoros and you feel good. As a matter of fact, you do an extra Pomodoro because you're like, I'm changing. That's it. I'm tired of being lazy. And then what happens? You might do this Pomodoros again the next day. All right, cool. I can do this. 5 days go by. Man, you know what? I've changed forever, right? But here's the thing. Life's like a pendulum, right? It swings back and forth. So let's say that we were operating in this level for a while, and then we just go bing, and this is where we're bing, 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 all the way up here. We're taking massive action. We're crushing it, right? Inevitably, that pendulum is going to go whoop, bow. right back to where you were before and even worse. You're gonna have so many self-destructive habits, you're gonna fall back and you're gonna go in a bad direction. It's gonna be so much more challenging for you to swing that pendulum to go back the other way. Instead of going crazy when you first get that burst of motivation, instead what you should do is do something that you can do consistently over a long period of time, because it's not about short bursts, right? It's about habits. It's about making sure that you can stay consistent with this and do this for several years, because it's in the actions that we do consistently which bring us the results. It's not the short bursts of crazy massive action. Like, that motivation doesn't stick. It doesn't work. So set yourself up for success. 8 Pomodoros for me is like, hey, like on a good day, I can probably do 10 to 12. I stick with my 8. On a bad day, I can do, I'm shooting from 6 to 8, because it's, again, it's challenging, but I can still get those 8 done. My business partner, considering that she has built this crazy muscle over a long period of time, because she just graduated from one of the top universities in the world. She just graduated from Cambridge University. She's also going to one of the top UK schools, business schools in the UK. It's like, I believe it's the #1 science school for the master's program. It's called Imperial. And I send her a message, and I'm doing some accountability, like, yeah, I'm doing my 8 Pomodoros a day. Like, I'm making stuff happen, and she texts me back saying, "That sounds good, Greg. I'm knocking out 12 Pomodoros per day." I'm like, you motherfucker, you son of a bitch. But that's because her baseline, her normal, something that she's trained over years, she's worked out that muscle of getting things done, where it's easier for her to shoot for 12, and 8 just seems like not enough for her, okay? So if we're going from not getting so much done, I highly recommend you set yourself for success. But if we're already pretty ambitious, let's bring that up a little bit. Once I get used to 8 Pomodoros and I'm able to knock that out, consistently, really easily, I'm gonna go up to 10 Pomodoros and test that out, see how that works. I don't want it to be a big drastic change in my life, because I think people tend to underestimate how difficult it is to really make something stick. I think people think if they just shoot far and fast into one direction that it's gonna stick, because they have that momentum and they believe they're riding on the high of getting things done, and they just believe that life has changed and they're gonna have that momentum forever. And the reason I can say that with confidence is because I've gone through that countless amount of times. And it wasn't until I read the book, The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, where my mindset shifted. I'm like, oh, it's not about the big burst of energy. It's about the consistent energy. That is what brings us long-term success. So Pomodoros are an amazing way to get things done, to build your discipline, to make it happen. And again, work fills to the amount of time that you give it. So if you give yourself 4 hours and you got to get work done, you're going to get so much done because you condensed it and saying, okay, I got 12 hours to do this. Okay, well, that means I can chill out for a little bit. I got 12 hours. I got 12 hours. If you say I got 4 hours, all right, like, what do I need to do? What do I need to cut out? And it's a completely different ball game when you set those limits on you. It's actually really crazy how the brain works. That being said, if you got some value from this video, hit that subscribe button down below. Also hit that motherfucking bell so you can get notified every single time that I post a video. And you can watch it, be one of the first people to watch it, and apply exactly what I teach right away and make it happen. With that being said, make it a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.